My name is Emma Carter. I'm 17 years old. And last summer, I sued my own parents. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I hated them, but because I had no other choice. See, my grandpa William Carter was the only adult in my life who believed I could do something extraordinary. He wasn't rich. He wasn't educated. But he worked for 35 years, fixing power lines in the freezing Ohio winters, so he could leave me something behind a future. When I was 11, he opened a 529 college savings account in my name. Quietly, faithfully, he put away a little from each paycheck. Birthdays, Christmases, he didn't give gifts. He gave deposits. "This is for your dreams," he'd say, tapping my forehead. "You're going places, Emmy." By the time I hit senior year, the account had just over $50,000. That money wasn't just numbers on a screen. It was a symbol of sacrifice, of hope, of everything he thought I could be. And then, in a blink, it was gone. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the day everything started unraveling. It was a Wednesday in early April. I'd just gotten my partial scholarship acceptance from the University of Illinois, enough to cover tuition for 2 years, but not housing or books. I felt like I could finally breathe again, like all those late-night cram sessions, science fairs, and tutoring middle schoolers for cash had finally paid off. That evening, I logged into the bank portal to double-check the college fund, just to feel safe. $10,000. My throat closed. I blinked hard, refreshed the page, tried a different browser. Still, $372,064. That couldn't be right. I felt my pulse pounding in my ears as I sat frozen at the kitchen table, laptop open, the glow washing over my hands. My mom, Michelle, breezed past behind me, holding a glass of wine and humming along to some 2000s throwback. I turned to her, voice thin. "Mom, where's the college fund?" She paused, smiled. "What do you mean, honey? It's supposed to have 50 grand. It has 10? Her smile tightened. She sipped her wine. "Oh, maybe Grandpa didn't save as much as you thought." I knew that was a lie. He'd shown me the statements. I had the emails. He'd been proud of every cent. "I want to know what happened," I said, louder. That night turned into a war zone. My dad, Brian, came home from his shift at the garage and tried to play dumb. Then annoyed, then defensive. It didn't take long for the truth to come out. They'd used $38,000 from my college fund to buy my younger sister, Lily, a brand new Jeep Compass for her sweet 16. "She's been having a hard time," my mom said, arms folded. "And you got a scholarship. Emma, don't act like it's the end of the world." I remember the moment I realized I wasn't even angry, I was hollow. Because what kind of parents look their daughter in the eye and tell her that her education matters less than a birthday car? They didn't even apologize. My mom doubled down. "You've always been the overachiever. It's Lily's turn to feel special." "She's failing 3 classes," I said through gritted teeth. "She needs support, not criticism." That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Grandpa's calloused hands handing me that bank book. The way his eyes lit up whenever I talked about neuroscience, how he'd called me his little surgeon. I felt like I'd let him down, like I hadn't protected what he'd built for me. The next morning, I skipped school and went straight to the bank. The manager confirmed what I feared: the account was in my parents' name as custodians. They had full legal access until I turned 18. It felt like the floor dropped from under me. When I got home, I printed every document Grandpa ever emailed me, every deposit confirmation, every photo I had of us together holding that first bank book. I locked them in a folder and hid it behind my biology textbooks. I didn't confront them again, not yet. Instead, I went quiet, cold. I stopped eating dinner with them. I ignored Lily's guilt-trippy texts and my mom's performative smiles. Until one night, About a week later, they dropped a new bomb. We were seated at the table, and my dad said, real casual, "Hey, we've been talking. Lily needs the car to get to her new job. So we think it's only fair you split the fund. 25 each." I blinked. "Excuse me?" My mom leaned forward. "You still have your scholarship. Lily doesn't have anything. If you care about this family, you'll do the right thing. And if I don't..." Silence. Then my dad said, low and flat, "Then you'll need to find somewhere else to live." That was the moment I snapped. Not in rage. In resolve. That night, I opened a new document titled Timeline of Theft. I listed dates, amounts, receipts. I copied the law about misappropriation of minor trust funds. I printed the bank statements. I emailed my school counselor and asked for legal aid referrals. I slept for 3 hours. Tops. And at 800 a.m. sharp the next morning, I walked into the county clerk's office and filed for a restraining order against my own parents. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about not letting them take anything else from me. Not my future. Not my voice. Not my worth. As I stepped outside into the morning sun, a single thought kept echoing in my mind, louder than the birds, louder than the traffic. They thought I wouldn't fight back. Well, I was just getting started. The day I filed the restraining order, something inside me shifted. Not like a dramatic movie scene where the sky cracks open and thunder rolls. No, it was quieter than that. Quieter, but final. Like a steel door sliding shut behind me. I went back to school that afternoon like nothing had happened. I turned in my biology lab report, nodded through history class, and ignored the tight stares I got from a couple of my classmates who clearly had been looped into the latest Emma's being dramatic again narrative. My parents didn't even try to call me that night. They must have gotten the email from the court. What I didn't expect was the silence. Total, ringing, punishing silence. Lily unfollowed me on Instagram. My mom didn't show up to her usual gossip session at the salon, but her friends still found time to call me spoiled in the comment sections of old posts. Even Mrs. Kilburn, the neighbor who always gave me cookies every Christmas, stopped waving at me from her porch. And for a moment, I doubted myself. Maybe I had taken things too far. Maybe I was ruining our family over a mistake. But then I'd see Grandpa's face, not smiling, serious, proud, telling me, "Don't let them take that from you." So I stayed quiet, collected my thoughts, and waited. I didn't know for what until something strange happened. A letter arrived. It was handwritten, no return address, just my name and a stamp from 3 towns over. Inside was a short note in neat block letters. "You deserve better than this. He believed in you. Don't forget that. R." At first, I thought it was a prank, but something about the way the letter smelled like pipe smoke and old paper snapped something open in my chest. R. Only one person ever signed their notes to me that way. Great Uncle Richard. Grandpa's older brother, a man I hadn't seen in nearly 5 years. He and my parents had a falling out over something vague and financial family boundaries. My dad once muttered, but I remembered him as the kind of man who could walk into a room and freeze it with a look. I had always been a little afraid of him, and quietly admired him too. The next day, I did something unthinkable. I sent him an email. Just one line. "If you sent the letter, thank you. I need help. Emma." He replied in less than an hour. Not with words, but with a phone number and an invitation. "Come for dinner, 7 p.m., Friday. Bring everything. R." So that Friday, I packed the manila folder full of bank statements, Grandpa's emails, and court documents, and I drove 40 minutes in my beat-up Toyota to a gated driveway that curved up toward a house I'd only ever seen in the background of Christmas cards. He opened the door himself. Same stern face, same crisp white shirt and pressed slacks. But when he saw me, something in his eyes softened, just for a second. "Emma," he said, "you look like him." I hadn't cried in 2 weeks. Not since the moment I clicked submit on the restraining order. But standing there, hearing those words, "You look like him," I nearly broke. Over dinner pot roast and mashed potatoes, exactly the way Grandpa used to make them. I told him everything. All of it. From the Jeep to the threats to the courthouse. He never interrupted, never judged, just nodded, asked sharp questions, and occasionally muttered things like, "Unbelievable." And when I finished, he leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and said, "That money was sacred, and they desecrated it." Then he stood up, walked down the hallway, and returned with an old wooden cigar box. "I think this belongs to you," he said, placing it in front of me. I opened it. Inside, on top of a stack of neatly folded papers, was a letter, yellowed at the edges, in Grandpa's handwriting. I didn't even have to read it to know what it was. My hands trembled as I unfolded the page. "Emma, if you're reading this, it means something has gone wrong. But know this, I saved that money for you, not your parents, not your sister. You. I trust you to honor what it represents. And I trust that when the time comes, you'll do what's right. Grandpa." My lungs couldn't hold the air in them. My vision blurred. I felt like I was standing on sacred ground. This wasn't just a letter. It was a weapon. Proof that the fund wasn't a loose family asset. It was a legacy. Uncle Richard closed the box and locked it. "We go public," he said. "What do you mean?" He turned toward the window. "You're not the one who should be ashamed. They are. We're going to court. Full legal recovery. Public record. No more backroom apologies." It was the first time anyone had stood beside me like that since Grandpa died. And for the first time in months, I felt less like a teenage girl being ganged up on by her family, and more like a woman about to fight for her name. I moved in with Richard that night. He gave me the guest room white sheets, clean walls, a tiny desk by the window, and a place at the table. Not just a physical one, a real place. He treated me like someone who mattered, not a problem to be managed. By the end of the weekend, he'd connected me with his attorney, ordered a full forensic review of the bank account history, and drafted a formal demand letter to my parents. The case was no longer just mine. It was ours. But on Monday, when I walked into school and found my locker door covered in sticky notes, "Gold digger," "ungrateful," "freak," I realized the battle was far from over. Lily had started talking, and someone in town was listening. I used to think that once you stood up for yourself, people would respect you, or, at the very least, leave you alone. But the truth is, when you break the rules in a family like mine, rules like keep quiet, be grateful, don't rock the boat, they don't just push back. They punish you. The morning after I moved in with Uncle Richard, I walked into school and saw my locker, covered in sticky notes, bright pink and neon yellow, curling at the corners like sick confetti. Gold digger, snake, family ruiner. One had a drawing of a brain with "She thinks she's better than all of us" scrawled across it. Another just said, "Jeep, you." I stood there, frozen, as students walked by like I was a display at the zoo. Some chuckled. One girl whispered to her friend and deliberately bumped into me. I didn't cry. I peeled off every single note, one by one, and stuffed them into my backpack. But my hands were shaking so hard, I could barely get the lock open. Turns out Lily had taken the drama to social media. She posted a long Instagram story, a crying selfie with the caption, "My sister sued our parents, and now I lost my car and my family. I hope you're happy. Emma." By lunchtime, her TikTok was flooded with comments like, "Wow, suing your own family trash. She's just jealous she didn't get a car. Imagine being that bitter." I wanted to scream, to shout the truth. That it wasn't about the car. It was never about the car. It was about the $50,000 my grandfather had saved with his bare hands. It was about respect, legacy, integrity. But none of that mattered in a world where the loudest victim always wins the crowd. I sat through class numb, eyes fixed on the clock, praying each second would move faster. At 3:05, I walked straight to Uncle Richard's truck and slammed the door shut without a word. He didn't ask. He just said, "Let's go home." That night, I couldn't eat. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the glow of my phone screen casting shadows across the white sheets. I opened my inbox. 20 new messages. Some from cousins I hadn't heard from in years. "Emma, what's going on? Your mom says you're trying to destroy the family. That can't be true, right? I'm disappointed in you." Each word hit like gravel in my chest. That's when I made a choice. If they were going to use social media to spread lies, I would use it to tell the truth. But not with selfies or hashtags. I sat down at my desk, took a deep breath, and wrote a letter. It began like this. My name is Emma Carter. I'm 17 years old. And this is the story of how my college fund was stolen by the people who were supposed to protect me. I poured it all out. The years Grandpa saved. The way I discovered the missing money. The confrontation. The threats. The restraining order. The letter he left me. The cigar box. Every detail backed by photos, screenshots, and scans of the court filing. I didn't post it on Instagram. I didn't tweet it. I printed it, mailed copies to every single relative who'd reached out, and a few who hadn't. It was old school, but I knew one thing about our family: they trusted paper more than pixels. While I waited for the fallout, I focused on what mattered. Uncle Richard and his attorney worked late into the night building the legal case. They confirmed what we already suspected: my parents had illegally withdrawn funds without consent. And because Grandpa's letter clearly defined the intent, the case was stronger than we hoped. We had grounds for a full civil suit with restitution, interest, and legal fees. But still, something in me ached. The pain wasn't just from betrayal. It was from the way people, neighbors, teachers, family rushed to believe the worst about me. I thought of the kids in school whose parents screamed at each other in the parking lot. The girl in third period who came to class with bruises hidden under her hoodie. The boy who always wore the same sneakers, 3 sizes too small. Nobody talked about it. Because we're trained to protect the image of family, even when it rots from the inside. That week, I found myself sitting in the student lounge next to a bulletin board filled with club flyers. One caught my eye: SAFE Club. Students advocating for each other. Support for students dealing with family abuse, neglect, or estrangement. Thursdays, room 112. I took a picture of it. I didn't go that week, but I saved the image, like a promise to myself, that I wasn't alone. And maybe, one day, I could help someone else feel less alone too. By Friday, the phone calls started. Not to me, to Uncle Richard. My dad, my mom, even Lily. They wanted to meet, talk, clear things up. Richard asked me what I wanted to do. I told him I want them to hear me, not spin, not lie, hear me once. So he arranged it, a sit-down. Neutral ground, his house, no yelling, no threats. Just truth. Sunday at 4 p.m. I didn't know what I'd say, but I knew I'd be ready. I thought the worst was behind me. But I was wrong. Because when they walked in, my dad was holding a thick envelope. My mom wouldn't look at me. And Lily, she smiled. The first thing I noticed was the envelope. Thick, cream-colored, sealed tight. My dad held it in both hands like it was a peace offering or a threat. He didn't sit, just stood in the center of Uncle Richard's living room, eyes locked on me like I was a stranger. My mom sat stiffly on the edge of the armchair, her lips pressed together so hard they'd gone pale. And Lily, she leaned against the wall with her arms crossed, chin tilted high, like she was watching a show she'd already seen the ending to. Richard broke the silence. "Let's hear it, Brian." My dad cleared his throat. This is everything. Every transaction. Every withdrawal. We've been working on it. He handed the envelope to Richard, but I reached for it before my uncle could take it. I wanted to see it first. Feel the weight of whatever story they were about to spin. Inside were printed bank statements. Some of them looked real pages I recognized from my own records. But others, they'd been edited. The fonts didn't match. The formatting was off. And there on one page they'd added a fake withdrawal, dated 2 months before Grandpa passed away. I stared at the page. They were trying to rewrite history. My voice shook. "You fabricated documents." My mom finally spoke. "Emma, we didn't fabricate anything. We're just showing the whole picture." "The whole picture," I repeated, feeling heat rise up my neck. "You literally forged a timeline where Grandpa gave you permission." Lily rolled her eyes. "God, you're so dramatic." Richard stepped in. "Enough." He took the envelope from my hands and flipped through the pages. He didn't say a word, but the way his jaw tightened said everything. "This won't hold in court," he said calmly, "and you both know that." Dad's eyes narrowed. "We were trying to avoid court. That's why we came." "You came," I said, "to cover your tracks." That's when Mom snapped. "You're ruining our lives. Do you understand that? We're your parents. We raised you. We put food on your plate. And now you're treating us like criminals." Richard didn't flinch. "You are criminals, legally and morally." The room crackled with tension. Lily scoffed under her breath. "Wow, guess you've always been Team Emma, huh, Uncle Rich?" He turned to her. "I'm Team Truth, which clearly scares you." She glared at him but didn't respond. Then my dad did something I didn't see coming. He looked tired, really tired, like the fight had drained out of him. "She has us cornered," he muttered to my mom. "No, Brian," she hissed. "She doesn't." But it was too late. He slumped onto the couch, ran his hands over his face, and mumbled, "We should have handled things differently." Silence. Even Lily froze. Richard asked, gently but firmly, "Are you saying you admit wrongdoing?" Dad didn't look up, just nodded once. My mom jumped to her feet. "Absolutely not. This is emotional manipulation. She's weaponizing her grandfather's memory." I stood up, heart pounding. "You already stole his memory when you drained that account." Her face twisted. "You're a child." "No," I said, voice rising. "I was a child, and you treated me like a threat." Richard held up a hand. "Enough. This conversation is done." But I wasn't done. Not yet. I pulled the letter from Grandpa, the original, not the copy, and placed it on the coffee table. "If we go to court," I said, "this gets entered into evidence, and you'll lose everything. Not just money. Your name, your standing, your reputation." Lily scoffed. "You think anyone cares about a dead man's opinion?" It took everything in me not to break right then. Richard's voice dropped, calm but final. "You should go." They didn't argue. My mom yanked her purse off the floor. Lily followed, throwing one last glance over her shoulder, her expression unreadable. My dad hesitated at the door. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months. "Do what you have to do, Essay," he said softly. "But don't forget, one day, you might be a parent too." I didn't respond. I watched them walk out, heard the door click shut, and felt something inside me shift again. Not pain, not anger. Resolve. Later that night, after Richard went to bed, I sat alone in the guest room, surrounded by papers, court filings, and the worn-out photograph of me and Grandpa fishing when I was 9. His handwriting echoed in my mind. "I trust that when the time comes, you'll do what's right." I picked up my phone and called the lawyer. "I'm ready," I said. "Let's go to trial." The next morning, I woke up to a text from a blocked number. "Hope you're happy. They're gonna lose the house. Congrats." I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Then I powered off my phone and turned toward the window. Outside, the sun was just beginning to rise over the trees. It was time. I thought I was prepared for court. I'd gone through every document, rehearsed every possible question with my attorney, and even memorized the sequence of events backward and forward. But nothing prepares you for the feeling of walking into a courtroom knowing your parents are sitting across the aisle and you're the one suing them. The courtroom was small, pale beige, and smelled faintly of Lysol and old carpet. The judge was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a wedding band she twisted whenever someone lied. I liked her immediately. My parents sat at the opposite table. My mom wore a navy blue blazer like she was headed to a PTA meeting. My dad looked stiff and tired. Lily wasn't there. She didn't have to be. Uncle Richard sat behind me, perfectly still, hands folded. I could feel his support like a wall behind my spine, solid, unmoving. The first few hours were slow. My attorney opened with a quiet, powerful statement about trust, legacy, and financial misappropriation. He didn't overplay it, just laid the facts out like cold stone on marble. Then came the evidence. The court clerk displayed side-by-side versions of the original and edited bank statements complete with metadata proving which files had been altered, the forged date entries, the mismatched transaction logs. My parents' lawyer tried to dismiss it as formatting inconsistencies, but the forensic accountant shut that down quickly. Then we introduced the letter. Grandpa's letter, the original, hand-signed, dated, and sealed in the wooden cigar box Uncle Richard had kept locked for years. I watched the judge's eyes narrow as she read it. "This account is for Emma Carter's education only. No other party is to access it without her consent upon turning 18. I trust her to protect its purpose." My mom looked like she'd swallowed glass. Their lawyer tried to argue that Grandpa had never made his intentions known legally, that the account was technically under their custodianship, that Emma had misunderstood. That's when we called Uncle Richard to the stand. He took the oath with quiet dignity and told the court exactly what Grandpa had said the day he opened that account, that the money was never meant for my parents, that he'd chosen not to make a formal trust only because he thought they could be trusted. And then our final witness, Grandpa's old coworker, Mr. Watkins, who drove 2 hours just to say, "Bill Carter used to skip lunch to put $10 a day into that fund, said it was for his surgeon granddaughter, not for SUVs or anyone's bad day at school." Even the stenographer blinked hard after that. My parents' side didn't have much left. My mom took the stand, gave a long, emotional speech about family sacrifice and treating daughters equally. She even pulled the single mom card, despite having been married to my dad the whole time. The judge listened politely, but the moment she started crying, something shifted. It didn't feel real. Because she wasn't mourning. She was performing. When my turn came to testify, I walked up with my knees shaking, not from fear, but from pressure. I looked at my parents. My dad couldn't meet my eyes. "I didn't want this," I said. "I never wanted to sue my family. I wanted to become a neurosurgeon. That was it. But when the people who raised you treat your future like spare change, you learn real fast that love can't be blind." Then I pulled out a photo. Just one. Me at 12 years old, holding up my science fair trophy, Grandpa grinning beside me. That man believed in me. He gave up everything so I could have a chance. And they took it, like it was nothing. I handed the photo to the clerk. "That's why I'm here." The courtroom went quiet. The judge asked a few questions, calm, direct, precise. Then she recessed for deliberation. An hour passed. I sat outside, hands numb. Uncle Richard didn't speak. He just placed a hand over mine and waited. When we were called back in, My heart raced so hard I couldn't hear the bailiff. The judge looked at me, then my parents. "This case is not merely a dispute over money," she said. "It is a violation of intent, of ethics, and of a young woman's future." She turned to my parents. "You knowingly misused funds held in trust for your daughter. You fabricated documents. You pressured her to forfeit her rights under the threat of homelessness. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff." I exhaled, but she wasn't finished. "You are ordered to repay the full amount of $38,000 with applicable interest, plus all legal costs associated with this trial." Gasps echoed in the gallery. My mother slumped in her chair. My dad buried his face in his hands. The gavel dropped, and it was over. Or I thought it was. Later that evening, while I was helping Richard file away documents, he got a phone call. He answered, listened quietly, then said, "Thank you for letting me know." I looked up. "What is it?" He hesitated. "They're selling the house." I blinked. "What?" "They can't afford the penalty, the loans, the fees. They're liquidating everything." A silence fell between us. I wanted to feel triumphant. I wanted to feel vindicated. But all I felt was the sting of knowing this was the cost of doing the right thing. And then my phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Just 5 words. "You destroyed this family. Congrats." Winning that court case should have felt like the end of a chapter, the moment when the credits roll and the hero gets her happily ever after. But in real life, the story doesn't wrap up neatly. As soon as my parents handed over the settlement check, the battle moved online. It started with a whisper campaign. A group on Facebook called Carter Family Matters popped up overnight, sharing screenshots of Lily's tearful Instagram story and calling me heartless and money-hungry. My inbox flooded with messages. "You ruined Christmas for us all. Have fun in college with your stolen cash. Everyone's talking about poor Lily. Shame on you." I stared at my phone screen, the glow reflecting in my tear-bright eyes. The walls of Uncle Richard's guest room felt like they were closing in. I realized I hadn't slept properly in days. My pillow was damp with frustration and fear. I pressed my hand against my chest, heart hammering. The pillow's starchy cotton got caught beneath my sweaty palm. I closed my eyes and took 3 slow breaths. Show, don't tell. Feel the darkness, then fight back. I picked up my laptop and wrote a post. "My name is Emma Carter. Yes, I sued my parents. Not out of spite, but because they stole my grandfather's legacy, $50,000, saved for my education. Grandpa believed in me. I believed in my family. When that trust was broken, I had to act. This isn't about a car. It's about respect, honesty, and the right to pursue your dreams. If that makes me selfish, then I'm proud to be selfish for my future." I signed it simply, Emma. Then I posted. Within minutes, notifications started pinging. Some were likes, a few hearts, then comments. "Thank you for telling your truth. I'm so sorry, Emma. You don't deserve this. Your grandpa would be proud." My chest loosened, the lump in my throat finally untwisting. I felt Grandpa's presence again, like a warm hand on my shoulder. The next morning at school, I tried to hold my head high. I passed the Safe Club flyer on the bulletin board, felt its promise of solidarity. That was me stepping into the next phase of my journey, joining a student support group. I slipped the image into my backpack, planning to attend Thursday's meeting. As I walked into the cafeteria, I caught sight of a group of juniors whispering and pointing at me. I braced for the worst, but they didn't point. They smiled and one girl mouthed, "I'm sorry." Later, I found out that a few teachers had forwarded my post to the school newspaper advisor, who ran a measured editorial, a lesson in family, trust, and education. It was balanced, highlighting both sides, but it ended with a line that made me breathe easier. In a world where the value of higher education is often taken for granted, Emma Carter's fight is a reminder that dreams are built on trust, and sometimes we must stand up for both. That night, as I lay in bed under the white sheets of Richard's guest room, I traced the folds of Grandpa's letter tucked beside me. I read it again. I trust you to protect its purpose. And I realized protecting Grandpa's legacy wasn't just about money. It was about building something better, not just for myself, but for others like me. The very next day, I walked into the Safe Club meeting. 8 students sat in a circle of folding chairs in room 112. There were kids facing divorce, neglect, even domestic violence. When it was my turn, I showed them the photo of Grandpa and me, the photo of Lily's empty Jeep spot in the driveway, and explained why those $50,000 mattered. By the end, 3 students approached me, tears in their eyes, grateful that someone finally spoke up about family betrayal. When I left the room, I felt lighter, like I'd traded fear for purpose. Meanwhile, the online storm grew quieter, not silent, but more balanced. Some old neighbors posted apologies. My counselor told me she'd had calls from community members offering support and scholarships. A local nonprofit offered to feature my story in next month's newsletter. But one thing hovered over everything: my parents. They had to move out of the house they'd sold. Rumor was they were bouncing between rental couches. Lily's TikTok had vanished. Her Instagram was private again, and the Facebook group I'd noticed now had a pinned post. We were wrong. Emma's truth needed to be heard. For her courage, we apologize. Former admins. That apology, it felt weird, like a bandage slapped over a deep wound. But it was something. One afternoon, I found an envelope slipped under my door. No stamp, no handwriting, just my name. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You're a strong woman. Don't let them steal your light. Someone who cares. No signature, no hint who sent it. I held it to my chest and felt tears prick my eyes. It was the kind of note Grandpa would have loved me getting. That evening, Uncle Richard knocked on my door. He held a newspaper, our local Gazette. On the front page was a photo of me, smiling, handing another student a stack of flyers for the Safe Club. The headline read, "Teen Turns Trauma into Triumph. How Emma Carter is Helping Others." Below it, Lily's name in smaller type. Local teens' family drama draws national attention. I turned the page. A column by a journalist from Chicago, praising my courage and saying universities around the state were interested in my story, potential scholarships, mentorships. My heart soared. The symbols of Grandpa's letter and the SAFO flyer felt alive, each one marking a step from victim to advocate. But just as I started to believe the worst was behind me, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from an unknown number, the same blocked contact as before. My stomach dropped. I hesitated, then opened it. "They're not done. Watch the news tomorrow at 8. My breath hitched. The glow of the screen made my room feel smaller. Uncle Richard watched me, concern in his eyes. "What is it?" I slid the phone across the desk. "I don't know, but I'm afraid." He paused, then placed a hand on my shoulder. "We'll face it together." I nodded, but my heart pounded with questions I couldn't answer. What new attack were they planning? And would anyone be ready when it hit? When my phone buzzed with that 8 o'clock news alert, my heart sank. I'd braced for something ugly, but nothing could prepare me for what I saw on the screen. The local news anchor, soft-spoken, with steel in her voice, opened with a grim expression. "Good evening. Tonight, a shocking accusation has emerged regarding Emma Carter, the teenager at the center of the Carter family legal battle. Multiple anonymous sources allege that Ms. Carter received more than $50,000 in college funds and quietly redirected portions of that money into her own personal account for non-educational expenses. Our sources claim evidence exists of multiple ATM withdrawals and transfers to unknown accounts. We attempted to reach Miss Carter's attorney, Uncle Richard, but he declined to comment. My stomach twisted into knots. It felt like someone had taken Grandpa's letter, shredded it, and dumped the pieces into a bonfire. I sat frozen on the guest room bed, staring at the screen. The white sheets around me felt suffocating. The walls seemed to close in. My breath came in short, jagged bursts. Uncle Richard burst into the room. I saw his face on my phone screen behind him. He'd paused the news feed on the coffee table. "What is this?" he demanded, voice low. My mouth was dry. "It's a lie." He knelt beside me. "Let me see your bank statements." I opened my laptop and pulled up the Real 529 plan portal. The balance history ran straight through deposits by Grandpa. One large withdrawal for my sister's car, then a full refund deposit, and the remaining funds untouched saved for my tuition, books, and living expenses. He scrolled, his finger running over the screen. No transfers out, no ATM withdrawals, no funny business. I nodded, tears pricking. They're fabricating this. They're using the same tactic they tried with the forged documents, only now. They're dragging my reputation through the mud. He placed a firm hand on my shoulder. "We'll stop this. We have the evidence." That night, we worked late into the morning. He called his PR consultant, an old friend, who drafted a press release. "To whom it may concern, the claims of unauthorized withdrawals by Emma Carter are unequivocally false. All funds in Miss Carter's 529 account are intact and reserved solely for her educational expenses. Any reports to the contrary are part of a coordinated smear campaign by individuals with a vested interest in undermining Ms. Carter's character and reputation." We sent it to every local station, every newspaper, every online news outlet that had picked up the story. Uncle Richard posted it on his social channels. The Safe Club advisor shared it with the school newsletter, and by morning, the airwaves crackled with the truth. On the 6 o'clock news, the same anchor led with a correction. "Earlier tonight, we reported allegations of misappropriated funds by Emma Carter. We have since received concrete evidence disproving those claims. We apologize for the error and acknowledge Ms. Carter's unblemished record regarding her college savings plan." A collective exhale seemed to ripple through our community. Comments on the station's website lit up. "Glad they set the record straight. Emma deserved better than that smear. Kudos to the reporter who dug deeper." But even truth can leave scars. I woke up that morning to find lilies and a small thank you note tucked under my door. "For your courage, keep shining, a friend." That simple gesture brought tears to my eyes. Whatever battle I'd fought, and however many more lay ahead, I knew I wasn't alone. The next day at school, I walked down the hall with my head held high. The Safe Club meeting room door bore a new sign, "All welcome, standing by Emma Carter." I paused. A circle of sticky notes surrounded the sign, each bearing a handwritten message. "Thank you. You inspired me. I believe you." I realized that the real victory wasn't the court ruling, or even the public apology. It was in those voices, the students, the teachers, the neighbors choosing to stand up for what was right. That afternoon, I returned to the family home, now empty, sold at auction. I stood in front of the driveway, where the Jeep had once gleamed under summer sun. The garage door was down, the lawn overgrown. The house looked vulnerable, exposed. I thought of my parents, wandering between friends' couches, begging for forgiveness. I felt pity, not anger. I remembered Grandpa's words. "When the time comes, you'll do what's right." I did what was right. I protected his legacy, my future, and my integrity, and I offered a silent prayer that my parents, one day, would learn the same lesson. That evening, Uncle Richard and I sat by the fireplace in his study. I traced the carved initials on the wooden cigar box, GWC, and smiled. He handed me a small, framed copy of Grandpa's letter. Underneath, he'd inscribed, "To Emma, with pride." I felt a warmth spread through my chest. I placed it on my desk in the guest room, where it would remind me every morning of why I fought. Later, I recorded a final message for my YouTube community. "Hey everyone, I'm Emma Carter. I never imagined my fight would become everyone's fight. But thanks to your support, I've learned that justice is worth pursuing, even when it feels impossible. To anyone out there whose dreams are under threat, stand up, speak out. You're not alone. If my story helped you, please share it. And if you believe in protecting our futures, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Let's continue lifting each other up." I ended the video with a soft smile and a wave. Then I turned off the camera and sat back, listening to the crackle of the fireplace. The journey had been brutal, but I was stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to become the neurosurgeon Grandpa always believed I could be. Because some battles aren't just about winning. They're about finding your voice and using it to build a better world.